step is we have to make the government abide by the Constitution as it exists and is written today, literal Constitution. Then we can amend the Constitution to make the government smaller or larger or whatever the American people see fit then. Government doesn't work. Government programs don't work, government welfare doesn't work, government reforms don't work, government politicians work too hard, but all the rest of it doesn't work. And another aspect of government that doesn't work is Social Security, the famous third rail of politics. Can't talk about Social Security. Do you know that in every poll that's been taken in the last few years, 2 out of every 3 Americans say that they do not expect to ever get $1 back from Social Security? In the 20 to 30-year-old range, there are 70% who say they will not get money back from Social Security. There are more people in that age group who believe in flying saucers than believe that they'll get money back from Social Security. Of course, those are young people with a long way to retirement. In the 30 to 50-year-old group, it's a little different. There, it's 80% do not believe that they'll ever get money back. But even in the over 50 group, 40% do not believe that they'll ever get any money back. Can you imagine within 15 years of retirement, and 40% of them do not think they'll ever see $1 from this non-existent trust fund? Well, Bill Clinton says it's not on the table. We can't discuss it. We're going to save Social Security. We're not going to touch it, so forth and so on. Bob Dole says, oh, I'm not worried about Social Security. I saved Social Security in 1983, and I can do it again. He doesn't mention that the way he saved it was with one of the most massive tax increases ever in the history of this country. And it is not going to happen again. We are not going to let the politicians do this here. I want to sell off the trillions of dollars of federal assets that the government has no business owning in the first place, liquidate those things, and then use the proceeds to liquidate the Social Security system, because the only way we will ever head off the obvious looming coming Social Security crisis is to get Social Security completely out of the hands of the federal government. Sell off those assets, use the proceeds to make everybody whole, and then everybody's out. Nobody has 15% of his pay taken out of his paycheck and thrown down a rat hole ever again. And once we get the government out and people can see what it's like to put 5% maybe of their paycheck in a mutual fund or something else and become millionaires by the time they're 65 instead of the Social Security system, I don't think it'll ever come back. I don't think they will ever fall for that Ponzi scheme again. One very important issue that distresses Americans everywhere is the question of crime. Their streets aren't safe, their schools aren't safe, they're scared to death even to let their children walk to school. The Democratic and Republican politicians respond to this very understandable fear by all kinds of ridiculous macho games in which one of them says, we're too easy on the criminals. We're going to have more prisons, tougher sentences, higher taxes, and so on. 3 strikes and you're out. And some other politician will reply, oh, you wimp, you're coddling the criminals. I say 2 strikes and you're out. And then the other one will say, oh, no, you mollycoddling little con-simp liberal, and so forth and so on. I say 1 strike and you're out. And the other one will scratch his head for a minute and say, all right, no strikes and you're out. Nobody gets up to the plate. We're going to put everybody in prison and make America safe again. looked at it another way. The Democratic politicians take our guns away from us and then go to the American people and say they are fighting crime by making the innocent people defenseless. This is their idea of fighting crime. The Republicans' idea is to take away the Bill of Rights, to take away our privacy, to let the federal government invade our bank accounts, to invade our houses without warrants or any probable cause. And this is their idea of fighting crime. And through it all, after one tough-on-crime bill after another, year after year after year, shredding the Bill of Rights into ever finer little pieces of confetti, the crime rate continues to rise, crime continues to get worse, and the fear in America continues to get worse. But where in the Constitution does it even give the federal government the authority, the right, or the ability to be involved in crime control in the first place? Crime is local. It takes place somewhere in the jurisdiction of a police department or a sheriff's department. There's no reason for the federal government to be involved, and in fact, Thomas Jefferson would be shocked to see things like the FBI, you can't tell them apart anyway, FBI, DEA, BATF, and all of these federal agencies toting guns, walking around intimidating American citizens, searching people in airports and so forth. This is not the America that they created. This is not the America that they envisioned when they passed the Constitution and wrote the Bill of Rights. The federal government should get completely out of crime control. It should get completely out of gun control. It should get completely out of asset forfeiture. It should get completely out of all of these areas where it has no business whatsoever. But if we really want to reduce crime in this country, there is one thing above all that we have to do to dramatically and immediately reduce crime in this country to a magnitude, a fraction of what it is now, and that is to end the insane war on drugs. People at home, I say, I hope that doesn't frighten you. It shouldn't. For heaven's sake, it is the only logical, rational thing we can do about this problem. Before there were drug laws in America, there was no drug problem. Before there were drug laws, there were no muggers on the street trying to support a $100 a day habit. There were no pushers on high school campuses trying to hook kids on drugs. There were no gangs fighting over monopoly territories. There were no drive-by shootings with innocent children getting killed in the crossfire. There were no crack babies. There were no people dying of overdoses. None of these things existed before there were drug laws. You know, most people don't realize that there was a time in this country when a 10-year-old child could walk into a drugstore and buy heroin. Can you imagine? Just walk up to the shelf, take the heroin, go up to the counter, pay for it, and walk out with it. Didn't need a doctor's prescription, didn't need a note from his parents, didn't need anything. It was sold in measured doses as a pain reliever and sedative, just the way aspirin is sold by Bayer today. And yet, despite this unrestricted availability of drugs in America, there was no drug problem. None of the things that we associate with the drug problem today existed then. They didn't exist until the war on drugs started in the 1960s, until there was such a criminal profit component in the price of drugs that it then became worthwhile to push them on children to try to get them hooked and develop a new cash cow, until it became the means of financing gang warfare, until it became the means of corrupting law enforcement agencies all over the country, until it became the means of a new power struggle in Washington, until it became the means to turn America from a safe, placid, set up cities throughout the country into jungles, which is what it has become as a result. When I was 10 years old, back in the 1940s, I used to walk to the movies every Friday night by myself, and I'd walk about a mile home through the town that I lived in, a suburb of Los Angeles. 10 o'clock at night, I had nothing to be afraid of. There were no muggers on the streets, there were no dope peddlers, there were no pushers, nobody, no gangs, nothing. I've been back there recently. I wouldn't walk through that town at 10 o'clock in the morning. If we care about our country, if we care about our cities, if we care about our children, we have to, we must, we shall end this insane war on drugs. I'm sorry, I keep looking back over my shoulder expecting Jay Manifold to put his hand on my shoulder. We've seen some spectacular examples of government tyranny in recent years. People losing their property that they saved a lifetime to buy to asset forfeiture. The BATF and the FBI storming compounds and destroying men, women, and children. Government snipers shooting at women holding babies in their hands and then being rewarded afterward for their good shooting. It's easy for Americans to look at these things, feel sorry for the people that were hurt by it, but not feel touched personally. After all, these people are different from us. And so people find it very easy to rationalize these things away as happening to somebody who in some way or other may have had it coming to them, and in a way that would never happen to oneself because of the way one lives his life. But the fact of the matter is that the woman who stood with her baby in her arms in the doorway of her cabin in Ruby Ridge and was gunned down by an agent of your government could have been you or your wife or your mother or your daughter. Despite the government's attempts to make her appear to be an evil genius, she was an innocent woman just like you, and someone who loved her baby just as much as you love your children. She was no different from you. The black man who is subject to a shakedown in an airport by a DEA agent who thinks that the black man's a little too well dressed and perhaps may have a little bit too much cash on his person to be anything but a drug runner. That man may seem to be far away from you. After all, you're not black. But I can assure you, as soon as they run out of black men to shake down, you will be next. People who lived in the Branch Davidian complex were accused of all sorts of things in an attempt to make them seem different from us, and that what was happening to them couldn't possibly happen to us. But they were just like us until the government wiped them out. These were real people just like us. When you prick them, they bleed. When you gas them, they cough, and when you burn them, they die. In a Harry Browne administration, this will end, I assure you. Never again will government agencies feel that they are petty satraps who can have their way with the American people. one way that you can make sure that it will be never again, and that is, this time, don't waste your vote. Vote Libertarian, and it will maybe never happen again if enough other people vote like you. When we are elected to the presidency, Libertarians have an administration. Every government employee, all 16 of them, will respect the Bill of Rights. Or they will pay the consequences. There will be no vendettas. There will be no search and seizure without a warrant. There will be no shakedowns, no petty bureaucrats climbing the ladder on the backs of innocent taxpayers and businessmen and blacks and property owners and other people who are too weak to fight back. Any government employee found guilty of violating the Bill of Rights in any way whatsoever will be censured, dismissed, or prosecuted.